Welcome back to the Gut Girls podcast. Today's episode is one that we have been asked by a lot of our listeners for, and I feel like there's just a lot of confusion around it, but this impacts everything about our health, our hormones, our gut, our mood, and we're talking about protein. But in a way that maybe you listeners have never heard before, we're going to dive pretty deep here and talk about why we're all confused about this protein panic and how we're going to fix it. And so if you're tired, you're craving everything in sight, you're overwhelmed, you're bloated, protein is going to be part of the answer. But we're going to talk a little bit about why we believe that. So I want to start with this. Why is there confusion about the protein? Because I was even confused for a long time. I remember thinking, I know that I need to eat meat, right? That's kind of what I was thinking. I know I need to eat meat, but I didn't really understand how to incorporate it. I didn't really understand, how to have kind of this pretty happy, balanced plate. I felt like I was a very carb heavy eater. And now that I understand what protein does for me, it's like, okay, I'm starting to understand. So, and some people, say, is this about the gym? Is this about, just trying to add this bulky muscle? What is it a little bit? So I want you to tell us about protein.
Yeah, I'm just as excited as you are, Dana, because I think it actually shocks me when we talk to our members how much they don't know the value and the benefit of protein. So, guys, protein, like Dana said, it's not just about bodybuilders, okay? It's about your gut lining, it's about your enzymes. For women and men, this is about your hormones, your detox pathways, and your neurotransmitters. So, it allows you to look at protein as or I should say food in general as medicine. But like Diana said, we're narrowing in on protein today. And it's basically everything that we need to be a functioning human. We're going to dive into some of these deep, educational resources today to really, I think, inform you of the nitty gritty that protein provides for you throughout the day, right?
Okay, so I want to ask a question. We'll just jump right in because this is the number one question that we get every day. How much protein do I actually need?
That's a great question. And I would love to I wish this was like a live podcast because I'd love to get some answers out there before we kind of share with you. But for most adults, guys, it's about 90 to 120 grams a day. And what's crazy is when Diana and I are reading through our members' journals, their dietary journals, we typically on average, Diana, wouldn't you say we see about 60 grams of protein a day? And so you guys just heard me, for most adults, it's 90 to 120. And so why? Well, that's because that's what your body actually needs to repair. So Diana, what's a little bit of your experience through your journey with protein?
Well, one of the biggest things I can tell, and especially over the last, 7 or 8 years since I've kind of been on this wellness journey, we'll call it, where I have been intentionally eating more protein, I can tell you that I feel like my hair is healthier, my skin is healthier. I don't feel like I didn't really understand that I was having maybe some blood sugar dysregulation at the time, years ago, but I do understand that now. And I can see if I go long times without meals, because our body really wants routine, right? So when I am prioritizing protein, I'm making sure that I'm getting it in each meal. I honestly feel calmer. I feel more pulled together. My mood is a little bit more regulated. And again, like I said, my hair is healthier, my skin's healthier, just kind of overall just feels so much better. And so, this really helps stabilize the nervous system. Protein really is the foundation so much. So, a lot of times it sounds so simple, but when somebody comes to us and they're just like, oh, I just feel like I'm constantly on edge. I'm in this fight or flight mode all the time. They don't say fight or flight. They don't really know that, but they just feel like they're on edge all the time. The first thing that we say is, it's not like, oh, go try this prescription medication or go try this supplement or go try this or that. It's like, okay, we've got to actually calm the nervous system first, and let's talk about nutrition. are you getting in what your body needs? Because it's not going to feel fulfilled if you're not giving it what it really needs. And so I feel like that's kind of what we try to teach, right? Is like to make sure that we're prioritizing the protein, we're keeping it routine because our body really likes that regularity of that. So, you know, let's talk a little bit too about why some people, when we jump in and we say, okay, protein. Are you eating protein for breakfast when you're starting your day? That's good. That's going to regulate your nervous system. Your bloating, or not your bloating. Your it's going to regulate your blood sugar. But then they come back to us and say, I feel bloated. I don't like eating breakfast in the morning because it automatically makes me feel bloated. So tell us a little bit about the bloating. Why do people feel that way if they're not used to eating that way? Why, when they start eating protein, do they feel bloated?
You just hit upon something so crucial, Diana. So you're kind of already talking about the feedback loop, right? Where people are like, I'm irritable. And then it's like, it's a click of like, oh, that's my hormones. So let me chase my hormones. But then it's like, that's not working. I'm still irritable. And now you're telling me to eat protein. But when I eat protein, I'm bloated. So in reality, I don't know how to fix this cycle. This is what we hear so much. Okay, the truth is, guys, protein isn't the problem. So let's back up. Protein is not the problem. It's typically the low stomach acid, the low enzymes, the low bile, or the gut dysbiosis. That's actually the problem. So instead of removing the protein, which is what we do then, right? I talk to so many women that say, well, I just don't handle a lot of protein, so I'm just going to remove it. So instead of removing it and then staying irritable, the real question becomes, what part of my digestion isn't doing the job? And so that's what I love, because we use the GI map as one of like our go-to tests for our Gut Girl members. And the reason why is because you get that answer right away, right? We get to see, is it low stomach acid? Is it the enzymes? Is it the bile flow that's a problem? Is it stagnant? Are you missing it? Like, guys, all these things, right, that no one thinks about when they're irritable day in and day out, because you're just kind of putting a band-aid on it, right? When you're thinking, oh, this is hormonal, I just need to address the hormones, it's yet just another band-aid instead of going deeper.
Yeah, and that's why we always talk about starting in the gut, right? Because if you can't handle the protein, your hormones can't do what they're going to do. So you giving yourself these hormone replacements or whatever they are, I hate to say it, but it's not going to work because you have to start at the root. You have to start at the foundation. So I do want to back up. If you're struggling and you can't figure out what's going on, that's one thing that we do love about the GI map test is it does reveal kind of what's not allowing you to digest those proteins well. And so we can kind of help coach you through that. Of course, we'll talk about the nutrition side, look at your journals, all of those kind of things too. But we really want to make sure that, everything's functioning properly so that you can digest that protein. And so I want to keep moving forward. We're going to use some like real life things, what you can do, those kind of things in just a minute. But before we hop into that, another big question that we get is animal protein versus plant protein. So tell us a little bit about that. There seems to be quite a bit of a debate about that.
Absolutely. So let's go to the truth about this. Okay. What we know for sure is that the gut craves amino acids and the gut requires absorption, right? So you need amino acids as the fuel, which, guys, if you're not aware, protein breaks down as amino acids, but you also need the capacity to absorb those amino acids. So animal protein is the easiest to absorb. Plant protein can help, but it's less complete and a little bit harder on the gut. So we don't teach like good versus bad when it comes to animal versus plant protein. We don't believe that. But what does your gut, I think the better question is, what does your gut actually tolerate and absorb? And so it's, again, we kind of talk about like this gut forward diet, right? It's not like a fad diet. It's so it's so specific to knowing your gut and then choosing the type of protein based on what you know about your gut and not what everyone else is saying or what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, so if somebody comes to us and they say, I really try to eat more plant-based or more animal-based, we will coach you through that, and talk to you about the benefits of each and all of those things. So, and again, we'll talk about that later. We're kind of hitting on these hot topics right now. So I'm going to jump into the next one because it is another big question that we hear all the time. Protein powder versus eating real protein. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, that's a huge one because I think in today's society we're on the go, right? 24/7. So it's like I have so many people like I drank a protein drink this morning. I'm like, "What was your protein this morning for breakfast?" And they're like, "Well, I had a protein drink and it was 20 grams of protein," right? So, the short answer of like, is drinking protein powder the same as eating let's say like whole food protein? The short answer is no. They're both useful, but they're not the same thing. So I think the confusion makes sense because if you're grabbing a protein shake, it feels easy, right? And people think, like I just said, I mean, I got that 20 grams in this morning. It's a win, and it is a win. It is a win. So I want you to recognize that. That might be actually your first step in getting more protein in your diet. So I'm going to stop there for a second and say, like, if you are one of those people that do get bloated, right, Diana, from protein, maybe that is your first step. But let us continue to educate you, like we do in our membership, to say, but where do we want to keep going, right? What's our goal here? So protein powder gives you, think of it this way, like the grams, right? It gives you the grams of protein, but it doesn't give you the chewing. It doesn't give you the stomach acid stimulation. It doesn't give you the bile release. Let me think, like the enzyme activation, right? The micronutrients. So it's the actual digestive processes that you get from chewing animal meat. And that's honestly, guys, all food, but we're kind of hunkering down on protein right now, so specifically protein. And what's so funny, I was just talking to Diana before we started recording this morning, and I was saying we actually had this conversation with my 6-year-old at dinner last night. So funny we're talking about it today, but we were trying to tell her about when you chew your food. If you look back, there's actually, I was telling Diana, this museum that we go to up in Washington, D.C., and they have these models of our ancestors and what they're, you kind of see how they transformed over the years from like what we looked like, what we look like now. And you see, guys, this is amazing. Their jaw structure is amazing. I mean, it's huge. Like they've got these huge jaws. And you know why? Because they had to sit and chew their food. They didn't have, I'm talking like ancestor days, right? They didn't have the blenders, right? They didn't have all that stuff. They didn't have the protein powders. They had to, kill their food. They had to chew it. I mean, you literally see that in history. And then where that plays out in real life today is think of all of the people that have to go through the dental work, the braces. Chewing actually develops good jaw structure and strength to actually make room for when your teeth are growing in. So if you have a weak jaw bone, that's where the teeth get crowded. That's where you're getting the braces. Like, I think this is absolutely fascinating. So it goes beyond like, okay, yes, protein powder can give you the grams, and it also gives you the digestive like acid as you're chewing, your body's making the acid, the enzyme activations, all that, but also structurally what it does for that. I mean, Dana, I think it blows me away.
I mean, it's truly fascinating, I think back to, again, kind of like where I was and just the learning of the protein powders and chewing and all of those things. I mean, one of the biggest things that we teach is, and we coach through, is when you do sit down, we want you to chew really, really well. And even though, we talk about it mostly be for the enzyme production and, those things, it also is for the development of the chewing. It's for your nervous system. It's for so many different things. So the chewing is really a big piece of that. So even though we do love these protein powders for convenience, for busy mornings, We already talked about for the people with sensitive digestion, getting started drinking, the protein powders or whatever. One thing that I do want to throw in here is be sure if you're just headed to Walmart to pick up your protein powder or, those little pre-made drinks that you can just refrigerate, shake up and drink. I really want you to pay attention to the ingredients in those because sometimes they make those using synthetic vitamins and minerals and things like that where they try to make it good quality, but it's actually not. And so when you do that, a lot of times that affects your digestion even more so. So when you talk about bloating and some of those issues that you may have, it could be because it is a very low quality protein powder or protein drink or whatever. And honestly, Angela, I mean, tell us a little bit about how that actually can even sort of affect the gut lining, those
Oh,
drinks.
absolutely. I mean, you think about the inflammation that those synthetic vitamins and minerals, and honestly, even the protein quality itself, Diana, can really cause inflammation at the gut lining. And so then there is no healing when there's inflammation. I mean, we know that for a fact. In fact, when you walk through like our process of gut healing with the gut girls, I mean, we do it so specifically that we remove the inflammation first, before we even heal, because that's the order that healing happens. So if you're drinking these, you might even be thinking, well, I'm getting the protein, but I don't feel any better. And that's exactly why. So, Diana, you hit upon something so crucial there. And I want to say the gut lining, honestly, guys, it requires amino acids. Like, you cannot heal the gut lining without enough protein. I mean, that's just a matter of fact. So, and it's not just the gut lining, like I said before, it's also the detox pathways. Phase one and phase two of liver detox require amino acids. And it's interesting, Diana, because on the GI map, we see people that don't eat enough protein. There's another marker on the GI map that gives us, it's called elastase 1, but it gives us an idea of how your pancreas is producing the digestive enzymes. Most of the time, we see vegans and vegetarians with a low elastase 1. So we love that because we love educating. So then we get to really educate them about, hey, if this is your lifestyle choice, that's great, but this clearly does, show us you're missing the let's say the complete protein and the quantity of protein. So let's be intentional with how we're getting in that protein, and it can be so life changing for them. I think it's amazing.
It is. You talk about, you always talk about some sort of metaphor or whatever. This healing without protein is like trying to, build a house or renovate a house without the materials that you need. You have to really, to be able to have a firm foundation and a good house, you have to have the proper materials, the good materials to do that. So again, just like you were saying, making sure that it's a good quality protein. You can look up those ingredients on Google, honestly, and it will tell you that there's, if they're synthetic or whatever. There are some, maybe sometime we should do on the podcast, like some of our favorite brands of protein powders or whatever. I think a lot of people would like that. But I want to go ahead and skip ahead a little bit because, very rarely do you hear somebody say, I'm craving protein. But you do hear people say, I'm craving sugar. So why do they crave sugar and not protein?
Yeah, that's the truth for sure. So sugar is a fast fuel, as you guys know, because we've seen it in our kids. You give them sugar and they are bouncing off the walls, right? And we feel it as adults too. I mean, we feel, a lot of us will feel like more anxious and anxiety because like there's so much energy all of a sudden. We're like, I don't know what to do with it. I'm sitting behind my computer and I don't know what to do with all this energy. So we feel it too. But remember, it's because sugar is the fast fuel. So if your blood sugar is unstable, and this kind of takes us back to like that first, protein bullet point that Diana was talking about, which is like it stabilizes your blood sugar, right? So if you're under eating protein, your blood sugar is all over the place, and then you add sugar to it, right? And so now your brain is like, hey, I just need more energy. It's almost like screaming for more quick fuel. And so then you're craving carbs, right? Over and over again. And there's so many other aspects to this. So the other thing about it is protein actually takes time to digest. There's something called the thermal effect of food, which means protein takes so much metabolic energy to digest it. So you're actually burning calories as you're eating protein. I mean, guys, that's like amazing, right? So because it requires so much energy to break it down, it's also putting your metabolism at a really healthy level to where that protein is going to last you longer versus a quick carb, which is going to be in and out of your system in no time, which again, look at the depth of this, brings us back to the morning breakfast. If it is carb heavy, you have that, you feel really good, and then all of a sudden you crash and your body's craving more carb, and it happens within, guys, no joke, an hour and a half. I guarantee if you're journaling your crashes and waves of energy, if you start your morning with cereal, within 90 minutes you're looking for another hit of like quick energy. So that's how fast carbs go in and out of us versus the benefit of protein, right? So that's a little hint of why we crave that sugar so much, right?
Yeah, I mean, it really is interesting. And, we talk to a lot of people every day. A lot of times people go to Starbucks or start their day with, a sugary coffee drink or, some sort of sugary energy drink or something. And they wonder why in the afternoon they have this crash. And it's because they really haven't adequately eaten in the morning. And so we're not saying that you can't eat carbs. We're not saying that, but we have to be really strategic about it and really try to have a well-balanced meal, and it needs to have protein with it first. And so, okay, let's skip ahead. We talked a little bit ago about people that have the sensitive stomachs that you even said, they're like, I can't handle protein, so I'm just not going to eat it. Talk about what they can do. How do you get to the point where you can eat protein?
Yeah, and I love this part when we do the GI map because we get to see this, right? It actually shows up in the markers on the GI map. And so what we coach you on is, okay, first, this does take us back to this is where some of the protein powders, like we said, they're a tool, but they're not the end game, right? So you can start with maybe some really good quality protein powders. Diana loves the bone broth. And so a lot of our members find hey, bone broth, and it depends, honestly, this is also why I love the GI map, because some people can be super high histamine to where they can't start off with bone broth. We've had that member. I actually remember one particular that now she's loving life. She's actually pregnant and enjoying her bone broth every day. But when we first met her, she couldn't handle bone broth. And so we do suggest starting off with that easier to digest protein like a powder or a bone broth or collagen, right? Which is another great source. But if you can't even handle those, guys, we would love to coach you as to probably why that is. So don't think oh, I'm out of the game because I can't even digest those. No, there's a deeper root to that, and we could help you find it. But then beyond the powders and the collagen and the bone broth, you can start with slow cooked proteins, right? I think how you cook the protein is actually the next big let's say secret to it all, so we really talk about marinating your meats, because if you think about it, guys, as you're marinating, let's say in the fridge overnight before you cook it the next day, it's starting to break down the protein for you so that the digestive system is not so burdened, and so that's a really awesome way to start getting protein in. And then as you continue, there's other ways, but just to get you started, I think that's a great starting point.
Yeah. It's, I can't help but think about all the different people that, we talk to, and one of the first things that they say to us is, I have the eating down. I already eat healthy. So I just need to do the GI map test, and they don't really want to do the additional work, we stress the importance of the nervous system, stress management, of course, the nutrition piece. And so once they really look at our nutrition guide and some of the guidance that we give them, and then they start to understand, okay, I actually feel way better because I was really tired. I didn't feel great, even though I thought I was eating healthy. Because a lot of times they actually, when they journal, they're like, you know what? It's actually a salad that doesn't have plenty of protein in it. It's maybe just a smoothie every single day, and they're not chewing and eating their food well, or maybe it's too carb heavy. And so once we pull that together and we kind of coach them through that, they're like, oh, I get it now, right? It's so
Yeah.
interesting. And so, then once they kind of get used to eating the protein and they kind of adapt to sort of our style of nutrition, they do start to feel better, but then they have more questions, right? It's like, can I eat too much protein now? I feel like I'm eating all the time, and I'm eating so many different, I'm eating protein with every single one of my meals. Can I eat too much protein?
Yeah, we get that question a lot, and you're right. It usually comes later in the membership. And so let's be honest about this, guys. Most people, if you listen to this whole podcast up until right now, what was the whole point? Where we started off saying most of our members, when we are looking at their journal, are eating 60 grams or less of protein. And we have been doing this for a long time. So I want to be so honest to say most people don't even come close to eating enough protein. I mean, honestly, it's just not our nature. So let's get that out of the way first. And then when it comes to, can you eat too much protein? You can, but it's typically those people that are starting off with some kind of, like, let's say kidney disease, right? Like they're starting off with a health issue where they already aren't breaking down the protein to begin with, whether that's an autoimmune kidney, disease, or just low renal function in general, like whatever that is, that's typically where we see people can overeat protein. But for the average person listening to this podcast, it's just probably not in your nature to overeat too much protein. So the real threat isn't too much protein, it's the chronic lack, to be honest.
Yeah. So when we go, I was just thinking when you were talking about how much to eat and are you overeating, we simplify this in our basics guide. We have a nutrition guide as well. And again, this is the very simplified version that works for most people. I want to make sure that there's somebody out there not going, well, I need this amount of protein, or I can't eat that much or whatever. But in general, that's who we're talking about right now. Is if you wake up in the morning, and then you need to eat protein with your breakfast, you eat protein with your lunch. If you need a snack, it needs to have protein with it, and then you have protein with your dinner. And the general rule of thumb is if you use your palm, everybody's palm is individualized for themselves. We have a picture of this even somewhere, and I know if you're just listening, you're not looking at my palm, but we have a picture of this where honestly, like I can almost put 3 eggs right here that sort of fit in my palm. So I usually eat 2 to 3 eggs in the morning. And then, for lunch, my chicken breast or my burger patty or whatever it is, I try to eat that much protein. And then of course doing it as a snack and doing it for dinner as well. Sometimes needing to add in a little bit of protein shake or something like that to be able to get enough in. But in general, most people using that palm size is about right for them. Right, Angela?
Yeah, so that's like that 20 to 30-ish grams. Of protein with every meal, like you're saying, and then snacks, additional protein there. But I mean, it's spot on. And then when you have someone who, like Dana said, this is for the average person. If you have someone who's training more, that might be a palm and a half or 2 palms, right? And it's even a little bit different, like we said, for men and women, right? Because our body types are different, but you'll see that individualistic nature come out in the palm size, right? Like my husband's palm is a lot bigger bigger than my palm. So like naturally he's going to need more protein. And then if he's training harder than I am, he might want to add like an extra half of a palm to that, with a post-workout meal. So the palm is so great because you can take it to a restaurant with you. It's always with you. And so you can kind of gauge. I know, Diana, you've talked about this when you're eating out at a restaurant, like, it's not like you're putting your palm over the plate, but like you at this point know what that quantity looks like for you. And so you make sure you're hitting that, even when you're eating out or, with friends.
Yeah. So I would say go look at our basics guide. You can download that for free on our website. That would be kind of a good starting point for you. If you do need to start maybe with some kind of smoothie or some sort of protein shake or something, I would say go back and look at the ingredients of what you're eating, because it actually can be doing more harm to your gut than good. So I would double check those ingredients, start really slow. If you can handle some bone broth, something like that, that's a great way to get some protein in first thing in the morning before you have your coffee. We've talked about that a lot. Make sure you have your protein before your coffee. And anything else you want to add about protein before we kind of close up?
I think that's a great start. Just to recap after that, consider marinating some of your meats. And I would absolutely say the last thing I want you to remember is the state of your nervous system when you're eating that protein. So if you are rushed, yes, eat the protein, but I would eat a smaller portion in that moment because your nervous system is just not going to digest, protein when you're on the go. And so maybe start with a smaller quantity, and your overall goal is to be able to sit down, take some deep breaths before that, heavier protein meal, and really chew it and enjoy it. And remember too, on that flip side is per meal, and this is a great point to end with, is we only can digest physiologically up to 50 grams in a meal. So this is probably going to come in another podcast. I love that we keep thinking of podcast ideas as we're talking, but for those people that are like, I eat one meal a day and it's my heaviest protein meal, I'm sorry guys, but it's not doing you service, because if you're trying to fit in all of your protein in that one meal, it's just not how we're physiologically set up. So, and that's your max, right, Dinah? Like 50 grams is the max. I don't want to be pushing 50 grams every meal. That is going to feel heavy, right? So that's where that 25 to 30 grams comes in handy. So that means you're going to have to, like Dinah said, be intentional with getting that 30 grams several times a day, and then with your snacks to hit that. Remember in the beginning we said like 90 to 120 grams of protein daily. So yeah, I think that's a huge starting point.
Okay, so protein is our foundation. Try to get your protein in. Go check out that basics guide. Your body needs protein to heal. If you are dealing with something that you're like, it's some sort of health issue or something, like you said, not everybody can handle it, but for the most part, most people are under eating protein. And if they'll kick that up a notch, most likely they'll begin to heal. They'll feel better. Just every single day they'll feel better. And honestly, generally they feel that within day 1, day 2, day 3, like really quickly. They notice a difference if they'll start their day differently and do that throughout the day. So hopefully this was helpful and answered all of your questions about protein. And we will catch you guys on the next episode. The Gut Girls podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. We are not acting as licensed medical professionals. Always consult your doctor before making any changes to your health routine.